Hey guys, welcome back for another episode of Not the Girl Next Door. I'm your host, Meg Reynolds, and as you guys can see, if you're watching this on YouTube and Spotify, you can see that I'm not in my studio. I'm here in Manhattan for a tour run. This is that 10-day tour run that I was talking about. And I've been thinking about doing an episode like this for a while, and I kind of just thought, what better place to do it than back where it all began? You know, this is the first time I'm back in New York where I'm kind of getting an itch of maybe I could see myself living here. And if you're a longtime podcast listener, you know that is like blasphemous coming out of my mouth. I always swore, you know, I would say never, but I was like, it would take a lot for me to see myself living in New York. And this is the first time I'm really feeling like, damn, I could see it. And while I've been here, I've had plenty of time to catch up with some friends. And as of today also, I have 1 month left in my mid-20s. And I don't regret moving away at all in my mid-20s, but coming home now feels different. And I don't feel like a stranger anymore. It just feels like home again. And I think that's a testament to how much I have healed and changed. And so on Tuesday night, I went to dinner with my best friend, Emily. And we were sitting there and I was like, you know, this is the first time I'm back and I'm having this feeling of like, did I miss out on living in New York in my 20s? And I never had that feeling at all. But I was like, you know, part of me thinks it would have just been simpler if I stayed. And she looked at me and she was like, but you didn't want a simple life. She was like, one, I don't think it would have been simpler. She was like, but you didn't want a simple life. You wanted an exciting life. You wanted this adventure. And I'm like, you're right. And she continued on and she was like, you know, I think you're always going to have that element of like, what if you stayed? What if you went? She was like, but you made that decision. You chose your path. And she was like, I think you chose the right one. And I was like, I know I did. And that's the thing. And the topic of this week is just, you know, the what ifs of life and the art of starting over. And as I'm about to enter the year of my Saturn return, everyone's like, oh, 27's crazy. And I'm like, it can't get much crazier than 25 and 26 were, but hell, I guess we'll see. But I really just feel like I've come into myself a lot. And I know I've said this time and time again, and it's true. I feel like present in my body. And when it comes to starting over, you know, I think a lot of people are too afraid to start over because they feel like it's the end of life as they know it. And that's the thing, is it is. When you're starting over, you are actively saying, I am ending this current life in favor of a new one, and you are clearing the way. You are making space, and it is going to be brutal and uncomfortable, and there is so much that's good that's going to come from it, but there's going to be a lot of tears at first. And coming back to New York, I think I'm having a moment of just grief again, of grieving the life I thought I wanted and thought I had. And you know, I just hit 5 years being in Nashville and everything, a lot of milestones this year, and being back here, I can't help but picture what my life would have been like if I stayed, and who would I be, you know, and what kind of person would I have become? Would I have healed? What job would I be doing? You know, would I have gone to law school? Would I have finished law school? Would I have dropped out? All of these questions in my mind of just wondering, you know, had I gone left instead of right, what would that path have looked like? And it would be so easy for me to just hyperfixate on it and get lost in that feeling of, what if I stayed? Did I make a mistake? And feeling like I need to move back. But I think I just need to channel that energy into actually being like, okay, if I am having a feeling of missing home, like how can I be here more? Is it I get more clients here and work on, you know, myself here? And also, why am I feeling like this all of a sudden? Is it I'm homesick and just want to visit my family more? Is it I feel like I'm missing out on my friends' lives? Or am I genuinely ready for a change again? And those are questions I don't know, but those are things I need to sit with. And I think, you know, maybe my life does look like me moving back eventually in my 30s. I don't know. I've got a couple years left in my 20s, but I think when it comes to starting over, you have to let go of your expectations, really and truly. I think we all get so wrapped up in our 5, 10, 15-year plans that we forget to actually stop and live our lives. And I think I did that for a long time. I wasn't living my life, I was following a plan. And I was almost performing in my own life. And I think that's a big complaint I see now, is people feel like their lives are performative and everything that they're doing just doesn't feel like them. And I'm like, and if you're somebody who's sitting there feeling performative in your own life, I need you to ask yourself if you even like any of the things that you're doing. Because I think most people don't. I think most people get lost in the external of performing for others, of, even the minute things of blasting one artist to make sure they get in your Spotify Wrapped. Like, it sounds ridiculous, but we all get stuck in performing for others that we forget to figure out who we are in the process. And we all know your 20s, it's romanticized insanely. But I think the one thing that we should romanticize of our 20s is the not knowing, is the unknown, is the freedom and the flexibility to figure this stuff out. It would be so easy for me to harp on what would my life have looked like if I stayed, and feeling like and starting to question everything that I did. But my best friend is right. I didn't want a simple life. I wanted the life that I chose. And I'm so glad that I chose it, because I wouldn't be the person that I am today. And when it comes to starting over, you have to relinquish control. I know you think when you start over, you're going to make all these big changes and everything is going to just be night and day, but you have no control over what your new life is going to look like. You don't have as much control as you think you're going to, and that is great, because instead of trying to control every single outcome, you should just let things fall where they will. And the other thing too, I think when it comes to this feeling of I need to start over, I don't think everyone needs to actually start over the way that they think that they do. I think if you are somebody who is feeling like this itch, right, and you feel the need to start over, I first want you to ask yourself, what is it in my life that is making me unhappy? If one component of your life could change today, what would change for the better? And when you pinpoint that one component, I want you to actually start working on that change. Give yourself a month. Hell, give yourself through the end of 2025 to start working on that one thing you feel like needs to change to drastically improve your life. And if your life still, you feel like out of place, you feel like you are just a ghost walking through your own life, then yeah, maybe it is time for a fresh start, to move away, to do some big change. But I think when it comes to I don't think starting over always has to mean packing up your entire life and creating a new identity. I think you can start over exactly where you are, as long as you hold yourself accountable and you're honest with yourself and you keep your promises that you make to yourself. Starting over sometimes is really just the small changes that will make you feel like a whole new person exactly where you are. And I think, when it comes to starting over, and also hustle culture, I'm in New York right now, and it is the city that never sleeps. It's the city of hustle and bustle. Everybody is a go-getter, and I love that. However, just like the feeling of needing to start over, I think sometimes the hustle culture is also another way of running from our problems, and it's another way of running from ourselves and the things we don't like about ourselves. If you are constantly needing to one-up yourself and upgrade your life, all of these things, and you can't just sit and be happy, that is a sign that there is something misaligned here. There's something misaligned with yourself. And maybe that's why I've finally found a piece of being in New York, is I don't feel the need to perform anymore. I don't feel like I need to be anybody other than myself like I would have in the past. That was always a big reason as to why I never wanted to live in New York, is that it was literally, the reason was always, I felt like I wouldn't be able to be just myself. I would feel like I have to be a version of myself for the sake of others. And I remember saying that is exactly why I didn't want to move to New York, and why I love Nashville so much, because it allowed me to be myself. But I think the problem all along, maybe it wasn't New York, maybe it was me. Maybe it was the parts of myself that I was running from. And moving did give me that time and space to heal, but I don't think New York was the problem. I think I was the problem. And that's crazy for me to say out loud, but it's true. And I think that's maybe part of the problem is, why do you feel like you need to start over? What are you running from? Is it, what parts of yourself are you running from and trying to get away from that you feel like you can't do it right where you're at? And don't get me wrong, I am always, 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 always the biggest fan of moving somewhere new in your 20s. I think it does give you that space you need to grow, to change, to heal. But for everybody, it's not always financially feasible. There's so many career things and stuff like that that may get in the way. So I think it's just important to figure out what can you change in your life right now. I think the secret to actually being able to truly start over and figure out why you need to start over is simply by learning to trust yourself. The relationship, again, I started this podcast talking about the relationship we have with ourselves. Knowing how to trust your own gut and intuition is going to be your greatest asset in being able to start over. And I think the adaptability we develop from trusting ourselves is another way of navigating life 10 times better than we ever have. Adaptability is absolutely the key to life, I think, because plans change, things go awry, you grow up and suddenly you don't want to be a doctor or an astronaut anymore. Like, the childhood fantasies fade away. But I think, in order to keep a little bit of that childlike wonderment, I think you have to still know yourself. And I think that's what makes life fun, right? Like, I've talked about this before, how I'm having so much fun again, just reconnecting with my younger self and really figuring out like painting again and drawing again and doing all the things that I loved doing as a kid. And I think that has allowed me to get to know myself better. And so I think just if you feel this need to start over, I think first and foremost, before you do any crazy big decisions, don't quit your job, don't sign an apartment lease, like don't do anything drastic. I think you need to first and foremost go for a walk, touch grass. And I'm not even joking about that. Like, if you are feeling this anxiety bubbling up of, I need to start over and change, just go for a walk, put your phone down, take a breather. Secondly, I need you to ask yourself the questions I said earlier of, what is it about my life that is missing? Or, if you think back to like a year ago when you were quote unquote happier, like what is missing now? Just really taking the time to maybe write in a journal and get to know yourself in that way. And then the third thing I want us to do is really talking. I don't want to sit here and be like, manifest your dream life. I know it's cheesy and cliche, but I want you to almost make a vision board of your life. If money wasn't a question, if a location wasn't a question, a job wasn't a question, what would your dream life be? Like, literally just play house for a second and build and write out what your dream life would look like. And when you have that list and you let your mind wander, see what you can apply to your current life. I think sometimes, again, in the age of social media, we're so lost in comparison and feeling like we need what's next, and we forget to stop and ask ourselves, what do I actually want? Like, why do I feel the need to do these things? Why do I think I need to start over? Why do I think, my life isn't great the way it is? What is it? If you need to start over and feel like we have 3 months left in the year, if you feel the need to start over, I want you to reset, rebuild, and rebrand. Resetting is exactly what I was talking about. Sitting down, taking a hard look in the mirror, a hard look at your life, and be like, what is missing? Rebuild. You've figured out what you want your life to look like. That is great. What actionable steps can you take now? And again, they don't need to be these big grand things of I'm packing up my life and heading across the country. It can be something as simple as, after work, I'm not gonna go home. I'm gonna go to the gym, or I'm gonna go do this dance class, or whatever it is. I'm gonna pick up a fucking hobby. Like, that is what the rebuild is gonna be. And then the rebrand is, you've been doing that enough. You've been consistent. You've been keeping your promises to yourself, and you are finally getting in tune with what this new version of yourself is, right? So resetting, rebuilding, and rebranding our life. I did it when I was 21 and I didn't even realize I was doing it. And I've done it again. I did it again at 25, even though I stayed in Nashville. Hell, I may do it again at 30. Who knows? Maybe we need a rebrand every 5 years of our lives. I don't know. But what I do know is that starting over isn't always what it's cracked up to be. And I think people think it is easier to move away and start their lives over than actually do the hard thing, which is facing ourselves. If you are truly going to start over, it does require the end of your life as you know it. But here's the good thing about that, is all of the best things always come from your hardest and worst days, your most challenging days. That is where you see the progress. And I know that is so true for me. All of the best things in my life have come after the hardest times. There's always flowers after the rain, right? For me, I got laid off from my job. I ended up launching my career as a tour photographer. I thought I was going to go to law school, did not do that, ended up moving across the country instead. Our lives are what we make them. And it is only up to you. Only you can decide why you're starting over and where that need to start over is coming from. And I think too, part of why I've been able to get to know myself the way that I have is because I've had no choice. There are some times in our lives where we're gonna have no choice but to choose ourselves and but to take a chance on ourselves. And those are the times where you have to face yourself and get to know yourself. And I think that's part of why I've been able to learn myself so much, is because, again, the choice to move, the choice to start a touring career, those are decisions that only I could make and only I could confidently say, yeah, I'm ready to do this thing. And so sometimes it really does take us having no other choice but to take a chance on ourselves in order for us to get to know ourselves. And that's a really scary thing to do. I think, especially in an age where it is so easy to search for the answers everywhere. I mean, people are literally rotting their brains with ChatGPT trying to figure out their lives. And they're listening to everybody but themselves. But here's the thing about that is, say you do let somebody make a choice for you. You listen to their advice and things go awry. You're gonna blame that person. You're once again gonna blame everybody but yourself, and that's not healthy either. You need to be confident in your choices and you need to own up to your failures in life. And the thing about starting over too is a lot of times it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, because people are gonna judge you either way. They're gonna talk about you either way. People are going to talk about you either way. They are going to have something to say. And if you don't do what you're always dreaming of, people are going to say you're washed up. They're going to say, why did you never go for it? You could have done it. They're going to be so like, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. So why don't you just bet on yourself and take a chance? The only voice that should have any sort of say in your life is yours, the one inside your head, the things that you say to yourself. And that is why it is so important, the kind of relationship we have with ourselves and how we talk to ourselves. Because when you're so self-deprecating in the way you speak to yourself, of course you're not going to want to start over. Of course you're not going to want to go chase that dream. You're telling yourself that you can't do it, so you're going to believe that you can't do it. Make it make sense. Starting over is never easy. Starting over shouldn't be easy. If you do truly need to start over, you have to relinquish control and you have to accept the fact that everything around you is about to change and it is going to be hard and uncomfortable and challenging. And if that scares you, it's a sign you should do it. And if it excites you, it's an even better sign that you should do it. Because at the end of the day, you can always move back to a place. When I first moved to Nashville, I literally remember telling myself, give it 1 year. What's 1 year of your life? And even now with me feeling like, shit, should I maybe move to New York? Do I need a new change? Do I need something different? Emily gave me the same advice and she didn't even know I ever told myself this. She was like, just give yourself 1 more year. Give yourself 27 in Nashville and figure it out. Try coming to New York more. There's always 1 year of our lives, 365 days is a blip compared to the rest of our life. And the other thing too is you're never too late. I know there's people out there listening to this that maybe are in their 30s feeling like they missed their prime to start over and build this new life because your 20s are all about discovering yourself. I don't think it's ever too late to find yourself. I'm watching my parents do it in their 50s. They're both getting to know themselves for the first time ever, and I love it for them. Now, I know that they have a lot of regrets and they feel like they missed out on their lives. But what are you going to do? Keep saying, oh, I'm too old. Oh, I should have started a year ago. Just start now then. if you are feeling like, oh, I should have started a year ago, start now and imagine where you can be in another year. Because if you don't start and you let another year go by and you're sitting there saying now, oh, I should have started 2 years ago, instead of thinking about how far you could be anyways if you just did it and just started. There is no one way to do life. There is no one rule book. I know a lot of us were raised to think that life has to be a certain way, but it doesn't. That's how I was raised. I literally had everything mapped out. I thought after college, I was gonna come move to Manhattan and I would get an apartment with some friends, maybe then eventually after a couple years move in with a boyfriend, we would have a dog, we would be here for a couple years, move out to the suburbs, and that was my life. And that life never sat right with me. Now I know it was because I was running from a lot and I didn't know myself and I was living for the sake of others. And I probably sound like a broken record saying all that, but it's true. Moving away was absolutely the best thing I ever did, but sometimes you have to move away in order to be able to come home again. And being back in New York right now, I am really happy. I don't feel this dread. I don't feel this sense of being out of place. And that's really peaceful for me. I've never had this feeling being back in New York. And I think that's a good sign that I've healed a lot and I've worked on myself a lot. And, you know, getting to see, it's nice to come home and know that some things really do never change, and sitting down at dinner with all of my friends each night, catching up, it's like things have never left. And that's the other thing too. I know a lot of people are scared to move away and start over because they're afraid they're gonna lose their friends. The friends that really do love you are absolutely going to stay and show up for you. Allie has been my best friend since we were 13. Kelly and Emily I've known for almost 10 years now, since my freshman year of college. Like, the people that love you, the people that cherish you will absolutely stay and absolutely be present. I think it is so normal as we get older to outgrow people and friendships. And it's sad, it really is, but it's okay because we only have so much time in our lives. I would so much rather invest 100 hours into one really good friend than divvy up 10 hours into 10 mediocre friends. And when you put it like that, it's a no-brainer. You'd rather have that quality over quantity in friendships. And having those really good friends, as much as, yes, starting over, you need to have that good relationship with yourself, but having a strong support system really does make things a lot easier. And I know not everyone is lucky enough to have that, but that is why it is important to be your support system. And I know this has kind of been like a rambling of thought episode. I think too, I always say when I'm talking about relationships, how we can't love the person that they want to become more than the person that they currently are. And I think we can apply that to ourselves as well. We can't love our future lives and our dreams more than we love our current self. Because here's the hard truth. Some of you are not worthy of your dreams. You're not worthy of your dream life because you're not willing to do the hard work to get that dream life and be worthy of it and be in a place to properly accept those blessings. And that is just the hard truth. Your dream life is only going to be a dream unless you're willing to actually work for it. So you can sit there and romanticize and idealize your dreams all of you want, but you can't love them more than you love your current self, because you have to work on your current self in order to get those dreams. And that is the truth about starting over too, is it's a relinquishing of, like I said, it's a relinquishing of control and ego. It's an ego death. Because there is a lot of probably shame if you feel like you've failed or you feel like you need to start over, but you need to release that from yourself. You need to release yourself from the expectations that were put on you by others or that you think were put on you by others. That is really where a lot of those feelings of embarrassment and shame come from, is really just the expectations you think others have of you. And that's why sometimes too, starting over can feel easier than actually doing anything else in your life, because it's a way to run away. And that's why I say that the need to start over, the hustle culture, the need to constantly level up sometimes really is an absence of self-love. It's not in the name of self-love. But only you can figure that out, and only you can figure out how you actually feel about those things. Like I said, I know this is kind of like a weird rambling thought episode. I just felt like what better time and place to kind of reminisce on some things than being here in New York. And we're winding down on this season, and this has been a really awesome time in my life, and I just kind of wanted to commemorate this in a weird way. Like I said, I always say this podcast is my living diary, and it's true. Like, I can't help but sit here and wonder what life would have been. Would this podcast even exist? I don't think it would, but what would life look like? What if I stayed? What if I moved here right after college, and all of these questions about what my life could have been? And the thing is, now I say what my life could have been and instead of what my life should have been. And I think all of this is a really good feeling of, hey, I've healed. I've healed a lot of things. That is all for this week's episode of Not the Girl Next Door. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening. And I will see you guys next week for another episode. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube. Okay, bye for now.